Thank you for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, regulatory actions, and political maneuvers in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact your freedoms.
Please support the State of Freedom by becoming a monthly supporter or member of the Warrior Circle, or by advertising your business, your nonprofit, or your event with us. Go to freedomstate.us. We are bypassing the mainstream media cartel and the establishment political parties in Louisiana and coming directly to you, spreading the uncensored voice of freedom across Louisiana and beyond. Tigerland Properties. These are licensed professional realtors in Louisiana, commercial, residential, investments, whatever you choose to do. These people, whether you're buying, whether you're selling, whether you want to invest, these people are the best in the business. They really are. Tigerland Properties, mainly they work in the Boot area of Louisiana, down in South Louisiana, but truly you could not be in better hands if you're buying or selling commercial, residential, or investing than Tigerland Properties. I encourage you to call them 225-320-3004. You'll want to make sure you're in good hands with commercial, residential, real estate, or investment. And they are the best.
Who really has the power over what you pay for electricity? In Louisiana, the Public Service Commission does, and that's why this race matters. Chris Justin is an engineer who has seen Louisiana's energy system from the inside. Now he's running for the PSC as a no-party candidate and refusing utility money. He says he saw things behind the curtain that convinced him the system needs reform. But knowing how the system works is one thing, changing it is another. So why is this engineer stepping into the political arena? What did he see? And can he go from behind the curtain to behind the dais? That's what we're going to find out this morning. This is the State of Freedom. It's 10 a.m. Central on Thursday, August 20th. This year is evaporating. I'm Danielle Walker, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, the watchdog-in-chief of Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, Chris Alexander. And we're coming to y'all live on all platforms this morning, folks. Voice of the People USA, TV and radio network, Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. Please take a minute, hit the thumbs up. It looks like the chat is working. So if you are on Rumble, X, YouTube, or Facebook, we should be able to see what you chat in. Please take a moment, hit the thumbs up button, share this with your friends, send us stars, do all the nice things. And you can catch us later on our audio-only platforms too. Let me bring Chris forward. It's going to be interesting this morning having two Chris's in the house. I'm not usually quite so outnumbered by Chris.
Well, you know what you can do, Danielle? My lifelong nickname is Critter. So if you'd like to distinguish for purposes of the show, you can call me Critter. Okay.
Okay. Be careful what you put on offer, Chris.
Right, exactly. It might be a perpetual arrangement.
Yeah. And welcome to the show, Chris Justin.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. We've chatted at length about this. There's so much we can get into, and y'all have been fantastic. So I'm very appreciative of the work that you do in educating Louisianans about what's going on here, because it is complex, but it really affects our bottom line.
Well, thank you so much. It's such an honor to have you with us. And look, you understand the complex, and you were breaking it down for us in terms we can understand. So we look forward to having that conversation here this morning. Let me read the scripture of the day just to get us off on a good foot. And today's passage is Philippians chapter 2, verses 19 through 21. And it says, "Yet I'm trusting in our Lord Jesus that I may send Timothy to you soon, so I can be refreshed when I find out how you're doing. Timothy is like no other. He carries the same passion for your welfare that I carry in my heart. For it seems as though everyone else is busy seeking what is best for themselves, instead of the things that are most important to our Lord Jesus Christ. And isn't that what we want the Lord to be able to say about us, that we carry the same passion for the welfare of the people that the Apostle Paul did, that Jesus himself did, that we are people set apart, that we're people who look and think and behave differently than everybody else because we have the mind of Christ and we're concerned with the things that concern him. So many people, the majority of people, are chasing after things that only help themselves and have no eternal value. But what matters to the Lord, what he desires from us, is that we have a heart that cares about what's happening to his people. And when we do, he'll always give us the wisdom and instruction in what to do. He'll show us what our role is, and he will guide us as we go.
And Danielle, what's so interesting about what you said, you're right. I think the vast bulk of humanity really does seek things that benefit themselves. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with seeking things that benefit oneself. We all have an interest in self-preservation. We all have an interest in doing things that protect ourselves, and that is a good thing.
Yeah.
But not to the exclusion of others. And particularly within the context of public service, I find it very, very troubling that so many of our public officials seem to be pursuing things that are largely self-aggrandizing and enrich themselves, and they seem to have forgotten about the people who elected them and the people whom they're supposed to be serving. And I think that is really the core of the problems that we face in our body politic, is that elected representatives in a constitutional democracy have forgotten whom they serve. And I think, honestly, Chris Justin is a very, very timely reminder that we are here to serve the people.
Yeah.
And Chris, I can't tell you, not only as a candidate, but as a person, from what I've heard and learned about you, thank you for being here. What a privilege, sir.
I'm honored to be here. I'm, so excited to get into it, to chat, and we need more Timothys in the world. And
Right.
we need more Timothys, and quite frankly, more Chris Justins. So
I appreciate that.
Let me. I have to get right into this. Obviously, as Daniel said, you're a candidate for the Public Service Commission, but your background and your history, you're a mechanical engineer by trade. Oh, a chemical engineer by trade. Just take a minute, just give us a kind of a general layout of your background, Chris.
Sure. I moved to Louisiana in 2009. I was hired by Shell at the Norco refinery as a chemical engineer, so as a process engineer there. I became a licensed professional engineer in the state of Louisiana. I still am. And at Shell, one of my roles was to optimize the 250,000 barrel a day oil refinery that we had there. So as you can imagine, this is very complex. There's safety, economic implications, people implications of operating a plant like that. And ultimately, I was promoted to the role of the quarterback, so to speak, of the refinery. I was the refinery plan implementer. So my role was to take the operating plan of the refinery and translate it into the day-to-day operations. So I would get a call in the middle of the night saying, hey, this happened, we're running out of crude here, what do we do? And I would have to figure out how to move all of the pieces to safely maximize profit at the site. And it was so much fun, honestly. It's very complicated, but I love that complexity. I love breaking it down and being able to translate it into the physical world.
Yeah. And then you made a decision well, actually, before you made the decision to run for the Public Service Commission, I find this so interesting. And honestly, if this were the only reason we had you on today, and there are a lot of good reasons to have you on, this would be worth it right here. You were hired in 2024 by the Louisiana Public Service Commission to find ways to help drive down energy costs for businesses and homeowners in Louisiana. That was your specific purpose. And unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot of progress or receptivity to the ideas that you came up with. Talk to our listeners about what that experience was like being a consultant for the Public Service Commission and what came of it.
Sure. One thing that we all need to understand is the incentives of the monopoly utility companies are not aligned with what is best for the people. And that is an uphill fight that we face every day. Our monopoly utilities, they earn money based on what they build. So they get a guaranteed 9.7% per year on everything that they build, which makes an incentive for them to build as much as expensively as possible. That's a long way of saying when we are looking to save money on our bills, that directly contradicts the fiduciary responsibility they have to their investors and their shareholders to squeeze every cent that they can from us.
Wow.
So
And it contradicts. And it contradicts, it seems, or at least it creates a conflict with respect to the fiduciary duty that the Public Service Commission has to us.
exactly. And one of the ways that people explain what the Public Service Commission is supposed to do is act as pseudo competition. Monopoly utilities, it makes sense for them to be monopolies, honestly, because it doesn't make sense for companies, dozens of companies, to build poles and wires all over our state, right? If you look at pictures of early New York City in the 1900s, you'd have dozens of companies that strung poles and wires everywhere. That is a form of waste. So they're granted a monopoly, but in exchange, we need people to keep them in check, and the government does that. So the Public Service Commission, they set the rates that we pay, they set the profit that the utility companies earn on everything that they build, and the reliability standards. That they act as, this is a government responsibility that we've entrusted 5 people in the state of Louisiana to uphold.
Elected by the people, paid by the people.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the funding comes for much of the Public Service Commission work comes from the utility companies, but it's paid by the people on our utility bills.
Yeah.
What were the? I've got to ask you though, but specifically, Chris, your interaction with the Public Service Commission as a consultant, your ideas in order to relieve the burden on Louisiana ratepayers and find out ways to conserve taxpayer money. You said you ran into, or you have said, some
Sure.
corruption and basically incompetence on the Public Service Commission. I want you to talk to our viewers directly about that.
Sure. Yeah. The most striking example of this was an item called lost contribution to fixed costs. And what this is we pay our utility companies for nothing. It's literally nothing. Electricity that they do not sell us. In 2024, it was $12.8 million. It's going to climb close to $20 million per year, right? And I argued in front of the commission that, hey, we shouldn't be paying them for nothing, right? They're making way more money than they have ever made. And there are all these technical reasons that we should not be paying for that. Ultimately, the commission, they sided with the utility companies who were funding their campaigns. And again, 2 reasons, which you explained, they're funded by these utility companies. And 2, they don't actually understand utility regulation. Most commissioners, they're career politicians. They're not utility regulation experts. When you even just say the word lost contribution to fixed costs, most people fall asleep in the middle of that, that term.
Sudden bout of narcolepsy.
Exactly. It is hard to understand. It's hard to follow. But at the end of the day, we get nickel and dimed, $20 million a year. That doesn't make our utility bills $500 a month. But if you add all of these items up, our bills are up 50% since 2020, and they're going to go up another 40% by 2030. And that's because we have commissioners who don't understand utility regulation, and they're funded by the utility companies whose sole job is to extract every cent they can from us.
So when you say you came up, Chris, and that's a great example, you're saying the utility companies are essentially, receiving, just on the one issue that you just cited, between a $12 and $20 million windfall every year for a service that they're not providing. You created an opportunity to end that, and of course it was rejected by the Public Service Commission, and I'm sure that you have numerous other examples that you could probably talk about where you were met with similar results. But the fact is, there's a direct conflict of interest here. as you just mentioned, you said that these public service commissioners are largely funded by the very utilities that they are charged constitutionally with regulating.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
And Chris, I want to pick up on something you just said. You said our rates are forecast to go up 50% by wait, say that you gave the
They've already
numbers.
gone up. Yeah, they've gone up 50% since 2020, and they will go up another 40% by 2030, even before the impact of AI data centers.
That's what I wanted you to get into. So
Yeah.
what is it that's driving this cost? Okay, so one is we're paying for services we're not getting, and
Sure.
the watchdogs that the people have put in place to take care to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen are not doing an effective job, to say the least,
Right.
in keeping our rates down. But what else is driving those costs?
Yeah, I'll talk about another example here. This one was in the news maybe a month ago where Entergy filed to purchase a power plant. It's 22 years old, and they want to buy it for 6 times the cost that it was sold for in 2024. And they want that to land on our bills. And this got some coverage because it would have added $8 a month onto our bills. And one of the consultants for the commission said, hey, this is solely as a result of the Meta data center. So people look at that, they say, okay, $8 a month for a data center, right? That's not where it ends. We need to scrutinize all of these costs. But that's perfect example of it is why are we paying so much for a gas power plant that 2 years ago was bought for a sixth of the cost? It's because Entergy, if they overpay for something, they make more money. They get a guaranteed 9.7% on the purchase price of something. So imagine Entergy is a car dealer and they'll sell you a Mercedes-Benz for $100,000. They'd rather sell it for $100,000 rather than $50,000, right? Not only do they sell it for the higher purchase price, but then they are also acting as a lender that gets a guaranteed payment stream from us every year, 9.7% per year on the equity. So inflate the price, they make more money.
So the more money that they pay for something, even an amount of money that is far more than what something is worth, the more money they get paid back from the taxpayers.
Exactly. Yeah.
And one other thing, you mentioned whenever we spoke before, Chris, that these power plants only have a life cycle of 30 years roughly. So if they bought this plant, it's 22 years old. They bought it 6 times the amount that they should have paid. They probably should have paid less, if anything, rather than 6 times more than it was worth. What does that mean for the balance sheet? I mean, is this thing only good for 8 years?
They have already admitted that it needs $300 million of work for that power plant in itself. So basically, you're buying a junk car that you're desperate for right now because of all of this growth due to AI data centers and everything else that they are putting on our backs, as opposed to the trillion-dollar companies that are forcing this growth that needs a ton of work on it, right? It is bad every way you slice it.
Oh my
Chris,
gosh.
if you were to wake up tomorrow morning and there were a rule in place that strictly prohibited any member of the Public Service Commission from directly or indirectly receiving any money or any perks from any utility that they regulate, and that rule was strictly enforced, what would change? Would things be different?
I think so. I mean, these commissioners, a lot of their money is coming from the utility companies for their political campaigns, right? And utility companies, they want to put in place, I hate to use the word incompetent because I don't mean that these people are stupid. I don't at all. They're incompetent in the same way that I am incompetent at flying an airplane, right? Or incompetent at being a brain surgeon. We are hiring people who don't know how to do the job of utility regulation. And the utility companies want that because then they are able to literally write the rules that the commissioners are passing verbatim. You had Drew Hawkins as a guest a couple days ago, and he's done incredible reporting. He found that one of Entergy's executives, they ghost wrote the rules for the metadata center. And then the commission just, they emailed it to the commissioners and they passed them verbatim. So if you have commissioners who are funded by these utility companies, they're much more and they don't understand utility regulation. They're just taking the work of the utility companies whose sole job is to extract every cent they can from us and rubber stamping it.
The very utility company that they are charged to regulate, to supervise, to make sure that they're not screwing Louisiana ratepayers.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
In late 2025, Chris, J.B. Couson introduced an amendment at the Public Service Commission, the Lightning Amendment, which was designed basically to fast track the development of all of these data centers in Louisiana. Passed 4-1. The only no vote on it was Devontae Lewis. Now, and this is so important to our viewers because we have these utility companies, we have the Public Service Commissioner, we have Governor Landry, and numerous others, extolling this pledge that all of these companies have made that absolutely they're not going to offload one dime of their infrastructure costs or energy costs onto Louisiana citizens. But the very amendment that was passed before the Public Service Commission only requires these utility companies, or the data centers, to commit to 50% of their power costs. Is that right? And that's only for a certain term. Could you talk about that and perhaps contrast the actual PSC rule with what is being proclaimed with regard to the offloading of these costs onto Louisiana ratepayers?
Sure. The first thing to know is that PSC is the body that ensures or allocates costs. So the governor may say something, the president even may say something, but they actually don't have the teeth to ensure to allocate costs one place or another. That is at the Public Service Commission, and that is why that role is so important. The Public Service Commission in December 2025, they passed the Lightning Amendment. And what that does is it fast tracks these data centers if they agree to pay for 50% of their power generation costs for 15 years. Now, we talked about how these gas plants, they'll have 30-year lifetimes, right? So they only need to pay the minimum of 50% for 15 years. That leaves 75% of the costs in total on us, 50% for the first 15 years and 100% for the second 15 years. That is the rule that is in place. The other thing with that rule is it bypasses the administrative law judge rule, which you've talked about last week, how the ALJ ruled that Meta must disclose the jobs and electricity usage, all of that. So there is some value in having an independent expert review some of these findings. They're saying you don't need to do that. And they're also bypassing competitive bidding for these power plants. So they don't have to prove the most affordable source of electricity for these power plants, as long as they agree to pay 50% for 15 years.
So the pledge then, Chris, is that this pledge by all these companies, that and I guess $5 or so will get you a large cup of coffee at Starbucks.
Yeah, exactly. It's we need people with the chops to actually look at the filings and understand what they are doing, not just what they are saying. So though they are pledging to pay for all of it, even on this first Meta data center deal, in which it's split in two, the first deal that's already been approved, there's $360 million of transmission costs that are going to land on our bills that are solely due to that data center. It's a tremendous amount of money.
And Chris, that's not theoretical. Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously there are concerns here, but at least with respect to this $360 million cost to build all of these transmission lines for these data centers, that's already been what you called systematized or socialized. It's 100% right now that is going to be paid by Louisiana ratepayers. That's not speculative, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're hiding the agreement, but by omission, they said that they're going to pay it for X, Y, and Z. They did not say that they're going to pay for this. So we can reasonably infer that they're not going to pay for that, right? Yeah, so $360 million. There are multiple lines going on, 4 different lines or 5 different transmission lines. This one, they're saying that they're not going to pay for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And by
And
rule, the Lightning Amendment from December 2025, by rule, they must commit only to 50% of their infrastructure and energy costs in order to be able to move forward. I
Of
want to
their
make
power
sure our
generation
listeners understand
costs.
this correctly. Power
Yeah.
generation costs, exactly.
Yeah, the transmission isn't even covered by the Lightning Amendment, which this $360 million line is transmission. It's a lot of money. You know, we're throwing out terms like this: transmission, generation. The Lightning Amendment is 50% of power generation costs, which is a small subset of the infrastructure that you need for these massive projects.
And let's take something that's in the news right now as an example. In the last couple weeks, Governor Landry came out and told us that Louisiana is a finalist in this energy project, the nuclear life cycle innovation, whatever. And Louisiana is going to get small modular nuclear reactors potentially, in addition to the entire nuclear waste of the entire country, basically in the salt domes. But we'll put that aside for right now and just talk about these modular reactors. How would that work with the grid? And are we going to see any benefit as ratepayers because these nuclear reactors are coming in potentially?
Yeah, that is a longer term item. SMRs, people have talked about them for years.
Yeah.
The earliest that I think that they'll be here 2030 would be aggressive. They're going to be expensive at first, more expensive than the alternatives, but I am all for diversifying energy sources. I think that we've seen the impact of fluctuating natural gas prices on our bills. That is only going to go up as we export more natural gas. The price that we pay for natural gas here in the United States is about a third of the cost as they pay in Europe. So in Plaquemines Parish, the Venture Global plant that is exporting all this natural gas, it is going to drive up the price that we pay here. And 72% of our power generation is from natural gas. So that is also going to drive up our electricity bills because that is a direct charge on our bills, is the fuel cost adjustment. So that's a lot, I am for more energy sources. I'm for nuclear. I think that that we're going to need all the above. We're going to need a lot more energy to be able to live the life that we want.
Why do you think it is, Chris? Well, recently the Public Service Commission, as you know, ruled that, in a 3-to-1 vote, Devontae Lewis being the only dissent vote, that Meta does not have to disclose the underlying data that justifies their claims about all these permanent jobs that are going to be created in Louisiana because of this, about the cost of all of this, how much energy it's going to require, things that you would suspect, Louisiana taxpayers have a right to know. The PSC ruled in a 3-to-1 vote that Meta gets to continue to conceal that data. Obviously, they have these non-disclosure agreements that are even binding elected officials to secrecy on this. Why is Meta so obsessed with keeping all of this confidential?
I can't speak to that. I would speculate that that if the jobs were to actually show up, they would want to show their work for that, right? They're saying 500 permanent jobs. Show us, show that to us. If you don't have it, then it would make sense to conceal it. But if you do have it, then prove it, show it to us.
Yeah.
100%. And I just want to go back really quickly to this nuclear question because I'm wanting to get into what is it going to mean for our grid stability to have these reactors if they are dedicated, if I understand, to the data centers. So will Louisiana ratepayers get any benefit from this, this big development, or is this just more smoke and mirrors essentially?
if these data center power generation facilities, they're not really going to benefit us in any way. It's going to be completely consumed by the data center. So whether it's powered by natural gas or nuclear or even solar in some cases and batteries, it doesn't really affect the rest of the grid because they need to be consuming, they're going to be consuming all of that energy themselves. So yeah, if they're paying for all of it and they want to pay for nuclear, then great. To me, the big thing is they need to be paying for all of it. And right now they are not.
Yeah. Because they're not even, like you said, they're not even going to be paying for the transmission lines. So these nuclear reactors, for instance, or whatever kind of energy setup they develop for themselves, is required in a lot of instances to be put into the grid with this idea that any excess that they have will be put onto the grid for the rest of us. I think it's your perspective that it may go in the other direction.
Yeah, they're not going to have access, these are baseload facilities that are going to use every drop of energy that they can. So that's one of the reasons that people are considering off-grid or private use electrical networks. That is kind of a self-contained electric grid just for that user. That's coming in front of the commission in November. But yeah, it is not going to benefit us in any way. That is why I am such a strong proponent that they need to pay for all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you say user, off-grid user, you mean an industrial user, not somebody who wants to live off-grid in rural
Correct.
Louisiana.
Yeah. They are looking at enabling these data centers to be disconnected from the grid, essentially.
Okay.
Wow. Chris, there was a bill this past session, and the reason why I've gone back to this a couple of times is that Louisiana ratepayers are deeply, deeply concerned, and they lose a lot of sleep at night wondering the extent to which they're going to be burdened financially by these big, huge data centers coming into Louisiana. And there was a bill by Rodney Schamerhorn this past session that simply would have codified in law precisely the pledge that all of these companies are making. You don't have to worry, Louisiana ratepayer. We are going to pay every single dime of our own energy costs, our own infrastructure costs, our own transmission costs, which, as you talked about earlier, is already proven to be a lie. And of course, for this bill, the Public Service Commission and Entergy were both present, vigorously opposing the passage of this legislation. So legislation that would have simply codified in law a pledge that they are celebrating and proclaiming in order to create enthusiasm for this project, they killed in committee. I don't know about you, but my inference based upon that is that the only reason why they would have opposed that bill is that they have absolutely no intention of honoring that pledge.
Yeah, they're fighting it every chance that they can, right? They have the opportunity at the Public Service Commission. They still have the opportunity to change the rule to make it binding that these companies pay for 100% of the costs. They have not done that. They've had so many months to do that. This legislative action that you're describing is another opportunity to actually make this pledge binding. And, these companies are fighting it tooth and nail.
Yeah.
And could the PSC just do it themselves, though? I mean,
they could just do exactly what they're saying that they want these companies to do, and just make it the rule that they pay for 100% of costs. But there has not been the appetite from existing commissioners to make that the case. But they could put it out there tomorrow, saying, "Hey, in September we're going to vote to make them pay for 100% of costs." No ifs, ands, or buts. Any commissioner could put that in front of the commission. They would just need 3 votes to get it passed.
Are there
So they're
any
getting
other,
Chris. Oh, I'm sorry, Danielle. Go ahead.
Sorry. Are there any other public officials that you can point to in and around these projects that are lobbying for the people, that are really trying to be, standing in the gap here where people are looking down the barrel of $1,000 a month utility bills?
Yeah, I will say, and I am a believer that people in general are doing the best that they can. And the officials that I've spoken to, I spoke to Senator Beth Mizell, I spoke to Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser. They are very interested in this issue, and it is perplexing to them why the public service commissioners are making the decisions that they are making. So yeah, people are looking at it. People across the aisle are very curious about, hey, what is going on here? This does not make any sense to me. And I don't have a good answer for why they're not making this change. They can make it like that.
Well, the good answer, Chris, the good answer is that they are politically and morally compromised. That's the good answer. So, and I know that you're very tactful in the way that you speak, and you're measured, which is very, very good. But I'm just going to state it very plainly. They are acting as political prostitutes at the altar of big business, from which they are receiving great largesse in the form of campaign contributions, and as Danielle mentioned in the pre-show when we were talking, probably in ways that can't be measured, can't be quantified, or even discovered. That's the tip of the iceberg, what we know. But the bottom line is they are politically compromised to big utility companies. There's no question about it, which is exactly why I asked you earlier about how much things would change if there were a prohibition tomorrow against that. Speaking of which, do you support legislation that would categorically prohibit any financial entanglement between big utility companies and the Public Service Commission?
I do. Yeah, I do. And if elected, I would be able to make that change. I would help drive that change at the Public Service Commission itself. I think that we would be able to make that very quickly with some of the commissioners on there that I can imagine would support it. So
well, you seem to have a good relationship, even though your consulting position, it didn't really reach fruition because of reasons we discussed earlier. You seem to have a good rapport with the members of the Public Service Commission. But let me remind you, as you know, there are 5 of them. Devontae Lewis, if you were on the commission, clearly I think would side with you on these issues, but there are 5. You need 3. So talk a little bit about how, if you're able to, how you think you would be able to expeditiously get some of these things through the Public Service Commission with a majority vote.
Sure. I have good relationships with the commissioners. When I was brought on as a consultant, I was voted in 5-0 both times. And one of the commissioners that I'll give kudos to and speak complimentary of it is Commissioner Mike Francis. He calls me regularly. He called me a couple of weeks ago asking, hey, this data center thing, it is complicated. I don't fully understand it. We need to, he's trying to do right for the people of Louisiana. I truly believe that. And I think he'll be the first to tell you that he needs some help. He told me, we need your help. 80 to 90% of the time we agree. So people like him who put the data first, who are trying to do the right thing. He is a Republican, and he is not going to side with Commissioner Lewis oftentimes just because of the political divide. Commissioner Lewis is a Democrat. As a no-party engineer who starts with the data first and can present the data, can explain things to both sides of the aisle, he trusts me, right? And I think that I can pull him along to where the nexus of power sits at the commission rather than being fed to the commission by the utility companies. Right now, we have utility executives making $1 million a year, literally writing the rules that the commission is passing verbatim because we don't have expertise on the commission to be able to write those rules themselves. Yeah. So it would completely change.
As you told me yesterday, Chris, the issues we face are the result of a combination of 2 things, corruption and ineptitude. And I think that you've talked about both of them. I have to tell you, I genuinely like Mike Francis. He's known my family for a long time. He knows one of my brothers quite well, and I think he's genuinely a good person. but I can never excuse a vote on an issue that allows Meta or any other multi-billion-dollar company to come into a state and do whatever the hell they want to do here without being required to provide the empirical data that underlie and justify the claims they are making. And I'm not going to excuse Mike Francis for that vote either, or any of the rest of them. I consider it an abdication of public responsibility. And I think, frankly, that's one of the reasons why I'm very, very glad you're working. And I'm glad that you have a rapport with people who hopefully would lean on you and follow your lead if you're serving on the commission.
Yeah.
One thing that I want to come back to is why it's so important to change the rule and not just hack away at specific deals like the Meta deal. So there are a number of data centers that are coming to Louisiana. And one that has flown under the radar a little bit is this Applied Digital one in Clico's territory. It is a $3.6 billion gas plant that is going to be that the Lightning Amendment applies to, and they are not paying for 100% of it. They're socializing those costs onto ratepayers. They're saying that they're going to pay for 100% of the direct transmission costs. So, and the same thing for the difference in the term, the lifetime of the gas plant versus the sales agreement. They're only agreeing to do it for 15 years on a 30-year asset. So, these rules, it is so important that we get them right to enable business to come here in a way that we're not getting screwed. Otherwise, we play this game of whack-a-mole with people who are not very good at utility regulation and are funded by utility companies. They can't keep up, right? I shared the analogy of being an airline pilot. This should not be a political role, right? If you want to get from point A to point B on an airplane, you want a good airplane pilot to be at the helm there. We've been able to get away with having mediocre pilots or warm bodies in that role for decades because we have not had this explosive growth in our electricity demand for the last 2 decades. So you could have someone just sit there and have the plane go on autopilot. We are entering a period of tremendous turbulence where we need a skilled pilot at the helm to navigate us through this. Otherwise, we are going to be facing, some people are going to be facing $1,000 a month utility bills. Imagine that, your electric bill, $1,000 a month in July, August. It is unsustainable, and it is going to completely destroy our economy unless we rein that in.
And I want to just pick up on that, Chris, and remind folks, yes, you are running in District 1, but there are only 5 commissioners in the entire state. And as Chris pointed out, you would be one of 3 votes potentially that would sway this state in one direction versus another. So if you are anyone who knows somebody in District 1, I urge you to call them and suggest that they go to votechrisjustin.com, find out more, send them this podcast, make sure that people in District 1 know to get out and vote, know what's at stake. Chris, would you talk about what the area is, the geography that District 1 covers? Because I only started learning about the PSC probably 2 or 3 years ago, didn't even know it existed before then, and I'm sure a lot of people are in a similar position to me.
Sure, yeah. District 1, it covers 10 parishes. It's most of Southeast Louisiana except for a lot of New Orleans, Livingston, St. Helena, Tangipahoa, Tammany, Washington Parish, Plaquemine, St. Bernard, Jefferson Parish, a little bit of Orleans, and St. Charles Parish. I do have a map on my website. If you go to map.votechrisjustin.com, you can enter your address and see which district you are in. So that's probably the easiest way to find out which district you're in.
Okay,
Chris,
great.
if there's not a change in trajectory of the Public Service Commission, not only in terms of where we are right now, but assuming all of these data centers go forward under current rules and structures as they exist, where will we be 6 months, a year, 18 months? I'm talking about the ordinary Louisiana ratepayer that is paying a mortgage, struggling to support their family and to survive? Where will they be if this trajectory does not change?
Yeah, I mean, imagine your utility bills, whatever number you're paying per month. Let's say it's $300 a month right now in peak of summer, and multiply it by 1.5, basically. So you're looking at $450 for that month. Right?
So you're looking at an average increase of 30, 25, 30, 35% a month in electricity bills?
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at 40% increase by 2030, and that is before the impact of the data centers. So if you add the data centers on top of that, let's say 50% increase by 2030. That is what we are facing unless we change policy. And there are specific policy changes that we can make that I've outlined on my site. In my estimation, there's over $1 billion per year in savings that we can achieve if we go down the line and fight back against all this nickel and diming. It all adds up. We need people in this position to be able to do that. So, that's the value of having an engineer in this seat as opposed to a career politician who's just doing what the utility companies say.
Yeah.
What's a day? Oh, go ahead, Danielle, because then I want to follow up, and I want to hear what
Sure.
I want to hear you say. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to draw out one thing, Chris, here, that there are certain aspects to this job of the Public Service Commissioner that can be understood by someone who has basic business sense. Would you just kind of extrapolate? There are some that people with basic business sense are not necessarily going to be clued into. Would you just
Sure.
talk a little bit about the necessity of a technical understanding for this job?
Yeah. These reports that the utility companies will commonly file with the commission, they can be 800 pages long, 1,200 pages long, and they have highly technical terms that frankly most commissioners do not understand. So you're right, at a high level, understanding that we pay guaranteed 9.7% on everything that they build. So they want to build as much as expensively as possible. Most people can follow along to that extent. When you start getting into the weighted average cost of capital, and you start getting into the levelized cost of energy, and these terms like lost contribution to fixed costs we threw out there already, there are hundreds, thousands of these terms that the utility companies use. And it is hard for a layperson to follow along with, right? They'll use the term kayak, construction in aid of contributions in aid of construction. And you start stacking all of these terms, the everyday person is just like, you get overwhelmed. And then you become reliant on these utility companies to explain it. When I was a consultant, pretty much every time I met with a commissioner, there was a utility executive either coming or going from meeting with that commissioner. The commissioners are reliant on these executives to explain it. And though they are not technically lobbyists, we are paying these $750,000 a year, $1 million a year salaries for utility executives to advocate against our interests.
Yes. And that's what they're doing. Speaking of advocating against our interests, I can't let you go without touching at least for a moment on your opponent in the race. And Danielle and I will talk more once you go. But we've been following your opponent, Representative Stephanie Hilferty, now for several years in the legislature. And there's no question, in our view, that she not only does not have the technical expertise for this position, she has no background in this, but she routinely votes in favor of big corporate special interests in the legislature, routinely receives a low scorecard from LACAG, my advocacy organization. I want to give you an opportunity here to just really drill down on why, when people go in and vote for this most important race, why it is so important that people vote for you, and what separates you with regard to this specific task and position from your opponent.
Sure. I'll start out by saying that I've met my opponent many times. She's a very nice person, and we've had very cordial conversations. I am much more competent when it comes to utility regulation. She is more competent as a commercial realtor, as politician. in terms of utility regulation, which is the job that we are hiring someone to do, to fight back and serve as that competition with these highly paid engineers and lawyers, she doesn't have that level of expertise, that background, that experience. So it's night and day difference. It's having someone in there, a skilled technical person, to be able to go through line by line and get money back for us, versus someone who has to ask the utility company to explain it to them.
What if you? But what if you're? Okay, so you're sitting on the Public Service Commission, and you've got an extremely important vote to make, and you have these big, powerful utility companies offering you all manner of largesse and money, campaign and otherwise. How do you respond to that in that moment? And I'm asking you this because we have seen it, Danielle and I, routinely, where we support people for office, or at least have in the past, and they make all kinds of pledges and all kinds of commitments, and they run on ideals of constitutional conservatism and service to the people, and then they get elected, and they do a 100% metamorphosis. We fail to recognize them anymore.
Yeah.
So just I'm trying to get to what is it about you that voters can say, I know that the man that I'm listening to right now and hearing right now is the same man who's going to be serving me on the Public Service Commission?
Yeah. I am not doing this for money. I'm not doing this for political gain. I have no interest in any other political office. I've never been a politician. No one in my family is a politician. I'm an engineer first and foremost. And I hate waste. I hate fraud. I hate corruption. And seeing it drove me insane. And I am seeing that, I have 3 young kids. My kids are 6, 4, and 2. I want them to have a great life in Louisiana. I am busy, right? And I do not want them to face a future in which businesses are stymied in Louisiana. Families cannot afford to, for childcare, insurance, all of these costs are stacking up. I want them to have a future that is affordable, that they're going to enjoy the same comforts that I have, that they can sleep at 72 degrees at night and not have to set their thermostat at 78 degrees because electricity is so expensive.
Right.
So that is what drives me, is that this is it is wrong. It is wrong, plain and simple, that these utility companies are squeezing every cent that they can from us, and we have no one to actually be able to fight back. I feel a calling and a moral obligation to do the right thing, because I have, the technical chops, and I'm able to take a position that pays $45,000 a year or whatever it is. My wife, she works at Shell still. We have the resources to be able to do that. And I think, when I was a little kid, Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility, right? We have that responsibility. If you are unhappy with the way government works, you need to go and serve. And that is what I'm stepping up to do.
Wow.
That is awesome.
November election. We're a little 2.5 months or so away from the election. I know you're working very, very hard out here. Day in the life of Chris Justin right now.
Sure. I spend a lot of time on the phone, as you can imagine, and a lot of time meeting with voters. I try and offer myself as an engineer first and foremost. I have a service where it's free, but anyone can submit their electric bill, their water bill to me, and I'll break down exactly what all these charges are. I am an educator. I love explaining to people how this works, what we can do about it. And I truly believe that if we get that message out there with enough folks, that we will be successful and we will have a far better outcome. So that is what I'm spending all my time doing, is just educating everyone that I can. Anyone who wants to talk about this, anyone who wants to hear from me, I am happy to chat with you about why our electric bills are going up and what we can do about it.
And Danielle, before we let Chris go, I have to say this. As a lifelong Republican whose dad fought for the Republican Party his entire life, my whole family has, I think it's absolutely lamentable, and Danielle and I will talk about this once you go, that you have been essentially locked out of the local Republican communities, not allowed to go in as an unaffiliated candidate for office and share your ideas. I
I
think
bet we know
Thomas,
some Republican groups that would welcome him as a
I know,
guest,
oh, the Louisiana Republican Assembly would absolutely welcome you, Chrissy Hike's organization.
and a few
Oh,
women's Republican clubs as well.
and the women Republican votes, and of course we the people down there. Yeah, well, there are a growing number of Republican organizations that are essentially replacing the decaying carcass of the establishment Republican Party in Louisiana, which is exactly what's occurring. But I just wanted to point out the fact that you know, people don't shut other people down if they're indifferent or not concerned. They're afraid of your ideas because you're shaking up the monopoly, Chris. And that's
Yes.
exactly what we need. They're afraid of your ideas. They're afraid of your truth, so they want to shut you down. And really, to be honest with you, that's a huge part of the reason why it's such a privilege to be able to give you a voice here and to, to wholeheartedly support you on all of our platforms.
I appreciate that. And, you know, I did have great conversation with the North Shore Louisiana Republican Assembly. I think it is very much aligned. My platform is very much aligned with Republican values, right? Pro-competition, anti-corruption. Let's let the best ideas win, right? And we need to keep rates affordable. We need reliability. These are all things that Republicans can agree on. And yeah, I think that it's a shame that these ideas aren't welcome in some circles. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and share with your listener base, who is a very educated, motivated, smart listener base. It's a privilege.
Chris, thank you. Your values are consistent with the historic ideals of our party as envisioned by Thomas Jefferson. There's no question about it. Unfortunately, your vision is inconsistent with the leadership of our current Republican Party, which has fallen in again with interests that are very contrary to the interests of the citizens of Louisiana. So it's good to have someone of a Jeffersonian philosophy on the State of Freedom today, consistent with our historic values, the historic values of my party that I still love. So God bless you, sir.
Thank you so much. I very much appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Chris. We'll be talking to you. Keep us posted on how things are going.
Will do. Will do. Thank you all.
Awesome. God bless.
Bye.
Chris, I really love talking to him because he is in it for the right reasons. How often do we see people in it for the right reasons? This is not a job for a career politician. I mean, let's be honest about it, Chris. I wanted to be honest about it, and then I was the second guessing my words.
Danielle, you don't have to preface anything that you ever say with "let's be honest about it," because I don't know that you have the capacity to be dishonest about anything. So let's just say that, okay?
I should say, let's try not to be mean about it. How's that?
Right, exactly. Okay, all right.
My point is, some of our politicians in this state are not the brightest bulbs in the lot. So this is not a job for them. What I would say is it's a breath of fresh air to see someone with technical understanding, who's got a heart for service, who's got a heart for education, who's got the patience to do a job like this with people who are, in some cases, openly hostile to good ideas that would save ratepayers money. And he's willing to go in there. I just want to say, God bless this man. And also, please, if you have the kinds of skills that are required for a job that you can see is sending our state down the toilet with the leadership that we currently have, please stand up and do it. Please raise your hand and try and do that job so that we do not end up in worse shape. Because as I see it right now, Chris, after first we talked to Kathy Latham, right, about what to expect with these data centers. Then we talked to Drew Hawkins, and it got worse, right? And we saw this Wall Street Journal article that explains that the finances of the Hyperion data center itself is a Ponzi scheme, is a complete house of cards. And then then we talk to Chris Justin, and he's explaining to us that not only is this, I mean, he didn't say this, I'll say this. Not only is this data center basically doomed because the finances don't make any sense, but we're going to be left with the bag in terms of the build out for the energy to power it, whether or not it ever even ultimately manifests as a real working data center, which is highly questioned.
It's absolutely unbelievable, Danielle. We're already on the hook for $350 million worth of transmission lines. But the thing that I find just utterly, absolutely disgraceful about all of this is these pledges that not only are Louisiana ratepayers not going to suffer in the form of higher utility costs or degraded infrastructure in their communities, they're actually going to benefit from all of this. They're going to see a reduction potentially in their electricity rates. No question they're all making all these great pledges. Yet when you go look at the actual rule that was passed at the Public Service Commission, they're contractually obligated to only 50% of their own power costs, which means even from the very beginning, Louisiana ratepayers are going to be burdened with 50% of their costs. And then after their 15, 20-year term is up, whatever, and these plants are still here, who pays the infrastructure and the energy costs at that point? 100% on Louisiana ratepayers. No question about it. This is the reason why these non-disclosure agreements are in effect. This is the reason why they kill legislation to codify in law a requirement that they pay their own costs. This is unbelievable, the extent to which we are being absolutely lied to by the very people who are constitutionally obligated to protect our interests. We are being blatantly lied to. And I think Louisiana citizens should be absolutely up in arms about this. I was talking to Chris yesterday, Danielle, and I said, Chris, you know, sometimes the moon and the stars line up. And if there was ever a time in Louisiana history when I think it was auspicious for someone like you, an unaffiliated candidate, business guy, to run for office specifically for the Public Service Commission on the issues that you believe in, the time is right now. Because I'm telling you right now, the frustration and the anger, Danielle, that the simmer is coming to a boil in this state. There is no question about it. You don't have to be a Republican. You don't have to be a Democrat. You start trying to take people's property and you start making people wonder about whether or not their electricity bills over the next year or 2 years are going to increase 20, 30, 40% when they're struggling to support their families. Let me tell you something. And all of it is being concealed in this shroud of secrecy that our public officials are signing and agreeing to.
Yeah.
So let me tell you, I think Chris has a very legitimate chance under the circumstances in which he's running.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to mention about that, Chris, he talked very tactfully about the political trappings and political alignments that happen in any kind of publicly elected office. I think about this job. You think about the way Governor Landry leans on the legislature. You think about the way that he has influence in so many aspects of this state. What I love about Chris being no party is that I can feel a lot more comfortable that he is not going to be bullied by Governor Landry when it comes to this, because I can guarantee you that there have been phone calls between Governor Landry, who's made this great deal with Meta, this great deal, this House of Cards deal that puts us in tremendous position for default as Louisiana citizens, while getting absolutely nothing in return. I can guarantee you there have been phone calls made to the PSC. Do you think that they voted the way they voted because there wasn't a phone call made?
Exactly. There are a lot of things going on, Danielle, below the surface that the average Louisiana citizen is unaware of. I mean, if if the Public Service Commission is going to vote to allow Meta to conceal data that every Louisiana taxpayer has every right to know and be fully aware of, how hard do you think it would be? What else do you think? What else do you think they're concealing? The political shenanigans behind this are just absolutely astounding.
If I hear a Republican politician tell me one more time how excited I should be because Louisiana is open for business, I might throw up. That's how I
Well,
feel right now, Chris. I might throw up because this is the kind of business they're doing, the kind of business that makes absolutely no business sense and puts all of the burden and all of the onus on Louisiana taxpayers and ratepayers. Who's
yes.
winning? Who's
Who's
winning?
winning? Louisiana is open for business when trillion-dollar corporations get to come into our state, build massive industrial complexes in the form of data centers in rural communities, have to pay absolutely no taxes, get massive tax advantages, get to conceal all of their data and the details of all of their agreements from the public, come in, stay for 15 years, pay 50% of their own energy, 50% of their own energy costs for 15, 20 years, then get the hell out of here and then offload 100% of the costs onto Louisiana ratepayers. Yeah, Louisiana is open for business for about 0.5% of the people who are involved in this process. It's not open for business for Louisiana taxpayers and ordinary Louisiana citizens. It is a big, big lie.
Yeah. And just one other thought on this, and I'm digging into something right now with regard to data centers, and that is I read an article this week that talks about the servers are really where the money is, and it's not just going to be the servers that are in the data centers, because I'm not convinced that's where it is. It's the personal servers that people are going to have at their homes, because guess where AI is heading? AI is not heading to a place where you want to continue to put all of your personal data out into the cloud, out into this massive beast that just continues to consume your data. Where AI is heading is people are going to want to have their own at-home AI closed system that does not feed into some broad, big public not public, but where a company would have all of your personal search history, all of your data. So people are already starting to take their AIs offline. Now that takes some money, right? It does take probably maybe $5,000-$6,000 for a home to be able to do something like that in a meaningful way. Apple, with right now you can do that with Apple. And so what I'm digging into is, okay, so the money is going to be there, right? This is the short-term thinking. Short-term thinking is, let's go after AI data centers. What the Wall Street Journal article told us is that there's no money. There's no money backing up this data center. There's literally no real cash flow on the balance sheet that's going to pay for the data center. What's really going, where the funding is really going, is in these home units that are going to self-contain AI for a family unit. So why are we not pursuing that as an industrial development, as economic development? Why aren't we courting Apple and saying, hey, why don't you come and build these little at-home servers here in Louisiana and produce something of value instead of this ethereal something that no one can see, touch, or feel, and of which there are no real numbers that are being made public. So anyway,
Exactly.
I don't
That's
know.
such a great point. Such a great point, Danielle. And by the way, you would think that this is a very, very basic question that I'm about to ask. It's a question that Boo Maddox asked recently at a meeting that we had. Has anybody bothered to figure out or even make some educated guess as to how much energy is needed to provide every Louisiana citizen with whatever AI they want? I mean, what kind of energy are we talking about? How many data centers do we really need? Do we need 15 data centers in a state? What do we really need? Why do you think it is that that calculus has never actually been made? Why don't we build what we actually need instead of going on this grotesque campaign across the country to build data centers wherever the local communities will tolerate it? I just don't understand why that calculus has never been made.
Yeah, the argument is always that we have to beat China, so there's an infinite number at the end of that, right?
I mean,
That's all I'm saying. There's like, we have to be in charge of AI. We have to win the AI race. Otherwise, the alternative is China will win the AI race, and they have kind of no morals built into their AI. Although I think we took the moral switch off of our AI as well in order to
well,
compete.
I think we did. I think we did. It just stuns me that we don't in any way connect this massive push to build all these data centers to what sort of energy is actually needed to supply Louisiana citizens with AI and with whatever AI needs they have. That's a concern that I have here, Danielle. But anyway, at bottom, we're talking here about Danielle about I guess you could call it the energy industrial complex here in Louisiana, where the Public Service Commission, which is charged with protecting Louisiana consumers, unfortunately, I think has prostituted itself at the altar of big corporations from whom they are receiving significant amounts of money and other political favors. And I think until we do something to eradicate that conflict of interest, the Public Service Commission is simply not going to be performing faithfully the duties that the Constitution requires it to perform. And that's why I'm thankful that people like Chris Justin are running for office, because I believe that he will make a huge difference on the commission.
Yeah, I agree, Chris. And I'll ask you this. When is the last time you saw any elective group in Louisiana vote against the interest of industry on behalf of the people?
Did you get all that?
I was thinking, about this past session, and we were looking at the bills that said you don't have to, you're not forced to take a vax if you want to go into a public building. You can make all your own medical choices. No, we can't do that because we might offend Big Pharma, who funds our campaigns. And we can't vote against. We can't vote against. I dropped my pen. Anyway, you get
can't
my
vote.
point.
You can't vote for a bill that codifies a pledge that these big data centers are not allowed to burden Louisiana ratepayers with increased electricity costs because of these data centers. You got to vote against that, right?
And you can't vote for a bill that would protect the landowners' rights against carbon capture and sequestration, because that would hurt the feelings of a big industry.
Great point, Danielle. You know what? That's a great point. When was the last time that a politician in our legislature voted against the interest?
Not a politician, but the body at large, right? Because we know there are
Yeah.
good people. There are good people.
there.
There are good
Yes.
people who carry these bills. It's always a miracle if these bills even get a hearing. That's what we learned this session.
Yeah, absolutely. Danielle, I'm so thankful that LeCAG exists. I'm so thankful that the State of Freedom exists, because I've always said that if the voters and the constituents of so many of these legislators, particularly the Republican legislators, knew exactly what they were doing in the legislature and failing to do in the legislature, 60, 70, 80% of them could not be reelected. And that's exactly why I think LeCAG is so important as a watchdog, to track what they are doing, vote by vote by vote, to make sure their voters know exactly what they did. You can't go to the legislature and do exactly what you want and prostitute yourself at the altar of big special interests, and then go to your town Christmas parade and wear the flower of liberty on your lapel like a corsage. Those days are over in the state of Louisiana,
Yeah.
and we are bridging that gap. And hopefully we will continue to grow so that come election time, voters know, you know what? I'm not buying your bullshit anymore. I know what you did because I know what LeCag said. I know what the State of Freedom said. And you can't lie to me anymore with impunity. And I'm not voting for you. That's what we are all about.
100%. So if you appreciate what you heard today, if you appreciate what the State of Freedom and what LeCag is doing for you every day of the week, please, by all means, invest in LeCag at lecag.org. Join the Warrior Circle at join.freedomstate.us. There are some privileges for those who join the Warrior Circle. You get to learn about our plans for the week ahead first, whether, what guests we have coming on, the topics we're going to be covering, and you have the right to send in any questions and ideas to the Freedom Phone, and you can call in on Warrior Wednesdays to the Freedom Phone as well and be part of the conversation right here on air. So we would love for you to do that. We'd be so honored if you would support both of our organizations. It's so vital for us to be able to keep going. And if you have a business that you want to advertise with us, you can do that as well. So you can just drop us a line at either Chris at lecag.org or Danielle at freedomstate.us. And Chris, I have 2 announcements unless you have anything else.
I just wanted to say to congratulate you, Danielle, because I know that you are the engine that fuels the sailboat here. I just wanted to really congratulate you and to thank all of our viewers for the fact that recently, under 1 million podcasts, we are the number 2 podcast in the state of Louisiana. News podcast, not just conservative political podcasts, but news information outlets. As far as podcasts, we are, as of August 13, number 2 in Louisiana after only 3 short years. And I would imagine that very, very soon, Danielle, we're going to become number 1. And I just want to appreciate all of our listeners, not just in Louisiana, but across Texas, Mississippi, and many other places who regularly tune into the State of Freedom to get good information and to hear our analysis and to see our guests. I'm so thankful that I have the opportunity every day to speak to tens of thousands, if not more, viewers who trust us and believe in us and are educated and hopefully somewhat entertained by what we offer. So thank you, Danielle, and thanks to all of our great listeners and viewers.
Absolutely. And a big thanks to you, Chris, because you are the watchdog in chief. And I know people really appreciate your perspective, especially your keen legal perspective, Chris. People, in fact, 2 different people have mentioned to me this week, please let Chris know how much we appreciate him, how much we appreciate his insights, because it's needed in this state. It's absolutely needed. And look, for such a time as this, God set us up, put us here together, and here we are speaking the truth on the bullhorn 3 days a week.
Well, I'm just glad I'm the North Star to which your light of intellectual illumination turns 3 times a week, Danielle. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Me too, whatever that means. Here, let's just, let me do these 2 quick announcements. First up tonight, we have in Houma, We the People Bayou community, a fantastic organization of which I am a part. We're hosting Dr. Randy Russ for an update on election integrity. We'll also have some great updates from our legislative team, outtakes from what happened this past session. So join us tonight at 6 if you can. Well, we'll be program starts at 6. The doors open at 5:30. We'll love to see you there. We do have some snacks too if you're just getting off work. Know that we will have some snacks for you. And also join us at the Storm Summit. Chris and I will be there in Vegas covering this great event, and we plan to live stream it as well if you can't attend. But there will be some great people there, great speakers many of whom have been guests on this show. So anyway, we hope you'd be able to join us. If you like to, go to stormsummit.us, and by all means, if you plan on attending, drop us a line, let us know so we can be expecting to see you there. All right, Chris. Well, that is all for me, my friend.
Well, in the words of the one and only William F. Buckley Jr., who is flipping in his grave about what National Review has become, Danielle, inveighing we shall go.
All right, Chris, I'll see you back here on Tuesday.
Absolutely. Red Zeppelin is the best kept secret, but because of us, it's really not a secret anymore. Anybody who has not been to Red Zeppelin on Perkins Road in Baton Rouge, you're truly missing out. The best environment, the best service, and the best pizza in the state of Louisiana. Go to Red Zeppelin today. Tell them the State of Freedom sent you. Blanco Brothers has been in business in Louisiana for about 30 years now. I have personal experience with this company, and I know others who have as well. If you have a business or a home and you've got roofing, gutter, sheet metal issues at all, one number you need to know, and that's Blanco Brothers Construction. He will treat you right financially, and he will take very good care of you with regard to the quality of the service that he provides. I cannot recommend Blanco Brothers Construction more highly enough. Memorize the number 225-226-4222. Blanco Brothers Construction, the very best in the business.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Any follow-up actions, resources, and links to our sponsors will be in the show notes. All calls to action can be taken at lacag.org. That's LACAG.org.
To learn more about our work, become a monthly subscriber, supporter, or advertiser at freedomstate.us. The State of Freedom, the #1 conservative podcast.